Greetings. Hope this finds you well. So, there was a terrorist attack on the Cuban embassy in Washington, D.C. I believe this took 2 days ago, Sunday, I believe, September 24th. There were two Molotov cocktails thrown at the Cuban embassy, and this isn't the first time that a terrorist attack has been perpetrated, against the Cuban embassy in DC. A couple years ago, there was a machine gun, an AK-47, that was fired at the embassy as well. And as this article by Calla Walsh points out, the Geopolitical Economy Report website, this is created by all of the hostilities that the U.S. government directs towards the country of Cuba, who again has been under U.S. sanctions, basically, economic siege warfare since the Cuban Revolution in 1959, because Cuba has dared to chart its own path because it had a socialist revolution and it's not under the boot of the U.S. empire, so it has paid a great cost since that. And it's also the U.S. labels it as a state sponsor of terrorism because it helped broker peace negotiations in Colombia, which the government of Colombia actually, thanked Cuba for doing. Again, all because Cuba is socialist and it has done very well by the working people there, and it's paid a great consequence. And then all of these negative, hateful rhetoric, from the U.S. empire towards that country, then you have, as correlation, these terrorist attacks against the, Cuban embassy in Washington, D.C. Shout out Geopolitical Economy Report. I haven't consumed too much of their website material, but Ben Norton and all the people he has on the YouTube channel, excellent analysis, and definitely give Calla Walsh a follow on YouTube as well. She does a really great job and is a huge advocate of Cuba and ending this economic warfare against the country. Cuba's embassy in Washington has been attacked 2 times in 3 years. No one has been held accountable because, Washington implicitly supports this, right? This reflects the long history of U.S.-backed terrorism against Cuba and 6 decades of illegal economic warfare. There's the embassy was attacked by 2 Molotov cocktails on the night of September 24th, second terrorist attack against the embassy in the past 3 years. Did not apprehend anybody. Secret Service explosives hit the front side of the embassy, which is already scarred with AK-47 bullet holes from a shooting attack in April 2020, an emblem of the deadly risk it takes to be a Cuban diplomat in the U.S. and the long history of U.S.-backed terrorism against the country. I mean, just look at probably hundreds of times that the U.S. tried to overthrow the government of Cuba unsuccessfully, right? And then there was that one time the reporter asked, Fidel Castro, do you fear for your life? Do you wear a bulletproof vest? He opened his shirt up, no bulletproof vest there. And he said he has like the people on his side or something like that. That was epic. Yeah, and this also coincides with this huge event that happened in DC, and showing solidarity to the people of Cuba, and that this horrendous, inhumane, completely illegal, disgusting blockade of that country by the U.S. empire needs to end. That was happening in New York. Even the president of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, was there. Yeah. So this is what was going on. Very, very powerful in Cuba. Sí, bloqueo no. Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Bloqueo no. That's Cuban president there.
Muchas gracias por la solidaridad. Muchas gracias por el apoyo. Y muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros.
Very, very cool. At least nobody is injured. That's a good thing. Yeah, again, if this had been, against, let's say, the Ukrainian embassy or the Israeli embassy, there would have been a lot of coverage and attention given to this. But because the U.S. empire deems Cuba as an enemy, there hasn't been a whole lot of chatter. I believe the White House did make an announcement recently, but again, it took a few days, right? And it would have been like that if it had been a so-called ally of the U.S. Yeah, right? It's just the hypocrisy. Cuba is actually a victim of U.S.-backed terrorism, yet the Biden admin has continued Trump's designation that it's a state-sponsored terrorism. And then in a statement, Cuba's Minister of Foreign Affairs put the blame on the latest attack directly on the U.S. government's aggressive policy and hateful discourse. Anti-Cuban groups resort to terrorism due to moral bankruptcy of their hatred against Cuba and the impunity they believe they enjoy. On a regular basis, in the official exchange between the embassy and the Department of State, has been warned that the permissive behavior of the United States law enforcement agencies in the face of violent actions can encourage the commission's crimes of this nature. Yeah. I mean, look at this. Includes 581 attacks against the country's diplomatic representations abroad, according to Cuba's Center for Historical Investigations of State Security. At their peak violence, in 1974, Cuban exiles accounted for 45% of all terrorist bombings on the planet. How many of those do you think were financed and supported by the U.S., right? By the CIA, the National Security State. Yeah, look at this. Most notorious of these terrorists, Orlando Bosch and Luis Posada Carrillas, bombed a Cuban plane and numerous hotels. They're trained by the CIA and exonerated by the U.S. government for their crimes. They died peacefully in Florida, celebrated as local heroes by the extreme anti-Castro community. Okay. The anti-Cuban groups are, yeah. I mean, and then you can just shoot up the Cuban embassy in DC with the AK-47. No worries, just go about your day. But again, you do that to supposed ally embassy, they go throw the fucking book at you. So there you go. So he's looks like he's waiting to be tried, the person with the AK-47. And again, how much of this is just a direct result of the hate and vitriol that the U.S. empire has directed at this, country 90 miles from, up the border of Florida, right? Since the 59 revolution. I mean, again, Trump's not any better on this than the Biden administration. Trump put Cuba on the state-sponsored terrorism list. So I'm not going to go over all this. And look at all the solidarity of people showing up. A wall of love, as this person says. There you go. In front of the Cuban embassy, probably the day after. Very cool. Very, very, very cool. All right. So I'll leave that article. I'll leave this article in the comment section of this video. Definitely, again, check out Geopolitical Economy Report. Good website, great YouTube. And then, yeah, this article is by Calla Walsh, who has done a lot of activism around, ending the blockade against Cuba, getting them off the state-sponsored terrorism list. Peace, much love, all part of the people. Cuba sí, bloqueo no.